Hi everyone. For the ones who don't know me, I'm sure a lot of you do know who I am. I'm also a South African citizen. I used to live in South Africa. Actually, I matriculated here in Springs Boys High. I studied here at Wits University, got my degree, my PhD. I was head of the Water Research Institute back in the old days. So I'm very familiar with South Africa. I come at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. I now represent a group that is international. We're in 18 different countries in all continents. And we specialize in utility or municipal management. That's our specialty. Okay, let's start. I'm going to talk about the current challenges that municipalities or utilities are facing. I keep on saying utilities because municipalities here have a service provision for water, sanitation, and electricity, and that's internationally known as part of a utility business. What is asset management? Integrated asset management systems and practices, important studies, quick wins and overall benefits in summary. Before I start, I want to comment on a couple of the previous speeches. The first one, what was said by Mr. Excellence, and he said something very wise. He said that people in charge mustn't just want delivery, they must assist people that have to deliver in terms of what they should be doing. There's more to that statement. I will, through my presentation, say a little bit more because I think it's critical in South Africa. And the second thing is the minister's speech that was just before tea. You know, all the years I've been coming to South Africa and all the years I've been propagating about what asset management is, it was very well summarized in that speech. My advice to the people here, the authorities here, is take that speech and make it an asset management policy directive. And that's all you need. If you do that, you're on your way. Let's get started. That's your major challenges: poor asset register, aging infrastructure, low productivity, losses, electricity pumping cost and quality. Those are your main ones. And I've got at the end poor reporting, monitoring and evaluation because, as Mr. Excellent said, accountability is extremely important. And you have to be able to know what's going on, and you have to be able to monitor progress, and you have to be able to take corrective actions. You're not going to start by perfection. You're going to start by having something. And the idea is that that something keeps on improving all the time. In terms of poor asset register, yesterday at the workshop, somebody from the audience said that the government makes us spend 8% of our expenditure on asset management maintenance. Is that right or wrong? And I said to him, internationally, we don't work like that. Internationally, we say you have to spend a percentage of your asset replacement value in terms of rehabilitation. And then somebody else said to me, but most municipalities don't know what their asset replacement value is. Yeah, they don't, because that's the biggest problem. They have a very, very poor asset register, and they don't know really what their assets are, especially when it comes to assets below the ground, assets that cannot be established through visual inspections, and that's a big issue. By the way, the answer to that is internationally. My friend from Australia gave some statistics. He said between 1.4 and 1.8% of replacement value is the right figure. My experience says about 1.5. I've seen municipalities, utilities that spend over 2, some 2.5, and at the end they go bankrupt. So you've got to be very, very careful about what you're spending. About 1.5 is pretty good number. Let's talk about the history about asset management. It started off with repairs. Things will break down, you go and repair them. Then in the 80s, they realized that no, you have to maintain things. So you have to establish their condition. Based on their conditions, start maintenance. And more recently, asset management planning became a risk-based exercise. Risk is a combination of condition and importance. In South Africa, the speakers yesterday kept on referring to importance as criticality. How critical is the asset? Basically, it's the same thing. So you need for every asset to know its condition, and you know how important it is, and based on that, a combination of that will give you a risk, and the high-risk assets are the assets of priority in terms of being rehabilitated. And there's a lot of standards called ISO, international standards. 55,000 is used for them. I'm not going to talk about the standards today. We don't have enough time. But whatever you do, it basically has to be done with that. Now, based on that, the recent definition of asset management, and that was actually well summarized in the minister's speech. It's an integrated approach to monitoring, operating, maintaining, upgrading and disposing of assets cost effectively while maintaining a desired level of service and improving overall business performance. So it is all about service delivery, to do it in an affordable manner. And it involves, if you look at the life cycle of assets, from procurement to disposal, it doesn't involve one department. Definitely not the financial department. Definitely not the technical department. Everybody is involved in asset management, the whole organization. Now, when you do that, when you design it, especially for infrastructure for service delivery, or when you're maintaining, whether you're designing a new thing or you're maintaining it, you have to balance three conflicting drivers. The one is the cost, the other one is performance, and the other one is the risk. The risk has to do with the reliability of service. The more money you spend in a wise way, the more you reduce the risk. Same thing with performance. Depending on the levels of service that you set, it can increase the cost. That might have to do, say for example, water, the type of connection you provide, the type of pressure you provide to consumers, the type of quality of water quality can increase the cost. So our job, whether we're designing or maintaining, is to balance those three. Now, I'm a strong advocate of building capacity within organizations to be able to do asset management. And I'm a strong advocate of using the right technology to be able to build capacity. Without the right technology, I don't think it's possible to bring about permanent change in terms of capacity building within. I'm going to show you the main business processes involved with asset management in a municipality. Now, the first thing you need to do is you need to be able to address all the different types of assets that a municipality has. That's water, that's sewer, stormwater, electricity, roads and transportation, properties and structures, vehicles, plants, and equipment. A lot of people ask me, so I'm going to take it step by step, how we build up a model. The first model is your data register, your asset register. In the past, there's been conflicting opinions about what that asset register is. Is it financial or is it technical? Well, the answer to this is simple. And they ask me, which assets must I keep in my financial asset register and which in my technical asset register? The answer again is simple. Whatever has geographical reference has to go in the technical asset register, number one. Whatever you have maintenance, whatever you maintain, so you need maintenance records, has to go in the technical asset register. So your technical asset register is your primary asset register of your assets. Now, it can't be anything. You know, we said we have some GIS people here. It can't be just a GIS. It can be GIS, but on top of it, it has to be a system that understands the logic of your assets, that understands things like hierarchy, assets have to be classified in a hierarchical manner. Say, for example, a water treatment plant. It understands logic of assets, especially in terms of networks. It must understand connectivity. It must understand all that makes something a road network or an electricity network or a water network. Why am I saying that? Because if it doesn't, then it's a bunch of lines or a bunch of boxes in a GIS that you think is correct, but it's all wrong. And we've done this all over the world in many utilities. Right now in South Africa, we're doing Ilembe. I hear somebody from Ilembe here in B2. And it's amazing how many things you find wrong with a technical asset register. And to find those things that are wrong, it must be an intelligent GIS asset register. The second thing you've got to build on that is your maintenance. Already, you can put a planned routine maintenance from your asset register, because for every single asset, you know how you should be doing inspections or services. For example, pumps. Manufacturers will tell you. Then you've got to link maintenance to your resources. That be stores to be able to requisition items. It could be human resources to be able to schedule workers to do jobs. And as a return, you'll give back costing in terms of your budgeting department, and also update the asset register with the work that's been going there. In terms not just actual work, but actually maintenance records go back into the asset register. And that all happens in terms of works being done in the field. If you want to increase productivity, that should be done through field work management, through a proper system that links into the main system. Now in South Africa, you use a lot of ticketing systems. It makes your life a little bit easier, but it doesn't help in terms of collecting maintenance information that is so important at the latest stage when you do rehabilitation planning. The maintenance records are very important when you do rehabilitation planning. This fieldwork management can also be used to do condition assessments out in the field, and also capture things. So you say you're out in the field, you're doing maintenance, but you find an extra valve, it's not there. You can record it, so the asset register keeps on improving. And you can also do logs and metering. You can log things in the field like bath meters and the readings and so on. Now, out of that, you can get reactive maintenance in terms of failures that's detected either through system monitoring, which is telemetry, SCADA, whatever, or you can do preventive maintenance through triggers. For example, a lot of our customers use this maintenance manager to maintain vehicles. Mileage will be a trigger for the vehicle to be maintained. It also, this operations module will also keep all the logs and do full production analysis. Now, when you get all these things going, you can start talking about rehabilitation planning or asset management planning. You need a lot of information to do this right. What is happening right now, every 3 years, municipalities go out to tender, a consultant comes in, does visual inspection of the visible assets, establishes a condition, and then comes up with a rehabilitation plan. Okay, that might be good enough for the visible assets, but for the non-visible assets, you practically do nothing, which is your pipe. Now the condition is, there's a lot of input coming here. The condition of the asset, the importance of the asset, I spoke about before. And to establish the importance, you need a lot of external information, like environmental and town planning data. You need things like soil conditions, proximity to flood lines, proximity of sewer pipes to water resources. We had a big incident in Johannesburg last year where a big sewer outfall failed and it polluted the clear water supply. That was a very high-risk asset. If they did any asset management, that wouldn't have happened. If they had established that that pipe was of extreme importance, high importance, and its condition was bad anyway, because it was more than 50, 60 years old, nothing would ever happen. So it's extremely important to identify all your critical assets and know their condition so you can classify them as high risk and attend to them. Another thing you need is replacement type and cost. I'll come to that, very important. And records. You need maintenance records, all sorts of records. Even complaints we use as an input. Even non-revenue water in an area, if it's an area with high leakage, that counts as a criterion into establishing the condition of the asset. Now, once you get all that, then you can come up with two outputs. The one is your infrastructure rehabilitation plan, and the other one is your proactive or preventive maintenance plan. For example, assets which are starting to deteriorating, like in condition COD, as speaker yesterday said, Mr. Rashe, you start having more frequent inspections. So you have a specific maintenance plan for specific assets and rehabilitation plans for the assets that have to be done. All this has to be done with different scenarios, especially in terms of cost-driven scenarios, where the system will help you prioritize different action plans to be done either yearly over first year, second year, third year, and so on. But it all has to be prioritized in terms of risk. The other thing this thing does is does full asset valuation. So every single one of your assets should be evaluated, not only in terms of replacement value, but in terms of actual value. Because in your books, financially, an asset might have been depreciated to zero, but it's still there. It's still in good condition. It's still working. So it's still worth something. But there are a lot of utilities that use this technique to actually change the balance sheet in terms of asset value. And it's acceptable to do that. The Australians started this about 20, 30 years ago, but now it's an international practice as well. It's accepted. And a lot of utilities do that when they want to raise money in terms of future work. And by the way, this importance of asset management is now understood even by the people who give money. We had talks with the European Investment Bank, and they told us years ago, how are we going to invest all this money in these 6 Eastern European countries? They want money, 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 and the money's been wasted. And they came up with this thing that if they don't do asset management, they're not going to give them any money. The World Bank is doing the same thing now in Malawi. They're giving them a few hundred millions to sort out water infrastructure, but they insist on asset management. BMZ, the Germans, GIZ, are also insisting on it in various projects we're in, like in Grenada, in America, in the Caribbean, or in Zambia. So it is becoming a big issue in terms of getting funds. Same thing like the Gates Foundation. I said yesterday that non-Suez sanitation is becoming a big issue, and the Gates Foundation is putting in billions to help municipalities and utilities with non-Suez sanitation, but now they insist on a non-Suez sanitation management system that these people have. So the money is well accounted for and catered for. Now, and this as the next step, we do our investment or business planning. That's where it all comes together. Your infrastructure, rehabilitation plans, your maintenance budget, your construction, with WIP coming in. By the way, the technical asset register has to link to the financial asset register, which is a summary of the technical asset register. Usually they summarize things in terms of the type of work, civil, electrical, mechanical, in terms of groups of areas, in terms of all types of things. Any way they want the summary, it's okay. This technical asset register is so detailed that it can sum up the information any way they like it for reporting purposes. It's grouped inventory information, group valuations, disposals, impairment, even WIP. WIP is very important for the financial guys because you can start depreciating an asset only after it's been commissioned. WIP shows assets that you paid for, but they haven't been commissioned. So that's the whole picture in terms of catering for all these different types of assets. Now, when it comes to services like water or electricity, things get a little bit more complicated. The next slide I'll show you. The last one, which I forgot to tell you about, is business intelligence. Minister's report even spoke about this. Extremely important in terms of having the right dashboards that can be used for drilling down into the problems for different types of people. Different dashboards for ministers, different dashboards for different types of stakeholders, different dashboards for operational managers and so on. We're doing this for Zambia right now. The regulator and the minister, we're getting dashboards for him so you can see what's going on. Now look at what's going on in water. They're going to go through it, it gets quite complicated. But it does get more complicated. There's quality coming in, there's non-revenue water coming in, commercial data, commercial rehabilitation coming in, there's hydraulic modeling coming in. So it does get a little bit more complicated, but it's all here. These are all the building blocks or building up the model to be able to manage your assets properly. How much more time do I have, Maria? I'm out of time already. I'm out. I'm finished. Okay. I said, I always have this problem, I talk too much. I just want to show one or two more slides. Yeah, some people said to me, this is too complicated to implement in all these African municipalities. I said, no, you're wrong. And this is where consultants have to change. Consultants have had it easy for so long in this country for the last 20, 30 years. There's a lot of attention on delivering service, so they had to build new reservoirs, new infrastructure, this is finished now. Now that's not the big issue in South Africa. It's not about giving access to people. It's about maintaining the service delivery to the people who already have it. So the consultants have to refocus to be able to assist municipalities in building a capacity. I'm going to talk about two quick win situations. One is commercial data evaluation. There is a module where you can take all the commercial data and analyze it and find all your commercial losses. It's pretty effective. Commercial losses in South Africa are very high if you compare them to the neighbors. I'll give you statistics later on if you want to. And then this is this upgrading plan. Upgrading plan, I've put these slides on for upgrading because of the theme of my lecture. The theme of my lecture is, how do I use existing assets to improve my performance? And I'll show this in terms of a case study done in Kimberley, so probably 15 years ago. When we analyzed Kimberley, we found out that it had 4 zones. The system, the network could cope with average demand. It couldn't cope with peak demand. All these red lines showed high velocities. There was pressures of negative, which means people were not getting water. And that's when Kimberley decided, no, they want to spend a few hundred million rands to sort it out. I said to them, you don't have to spend millions of rands. All you have to do is do an upgrading plan. An upgrading plan is something simple. Look what we did here. We changed the 4 zones to 15 zones. The result copes well under fully developed peak demand conditions, not under present peak demand conditions, fully developed. Electricity was reduced by 25% because these guys had a lot of pumps. And all we did is we put 30 new joints, 5 to be undone. We decommissioned 26 kilometers of pipes. Now, this is very important. Why is it important? Because if you're going to be doing rehabilitation planning and asset management, and they tell you a big pipe is leaking, and it's all corroded, and you got to replace it, do you replace it? Maybe you don't need the bloody thing in the first place. So why replace it? So it's extremely important that this exercise is done first. Basically, all you're doing is then maximizing the use of your existing assets. When I looked at Soweto years ago, I found out that there was 3 or 4 different networks in the same place at one stage. And I said to them, what the heck happened here? And they said to me, all these consultants, they wanted to get money. You know, it was the days of the Bruder Bond. And they kept on putting more pipes and more pipes into Suez. What happened? Everything was leaking like hell. If you have the amount of pipes that you need, it will leak a lot more. So here we decommissioned 26 kilometers, put a few, anyway, all these changes that even resulted in close to 30% actually electricity, cost about 20 million rand. Those peanuts. So this is the sort of thing you've got to look at. For example, we're looking at Ilembe right now. They're converting the data that at the stage of that cycle I showed you. A lot can be done there to optimize this. Okay, I'm not going to, I know I've been over my time, I'm sorry. My presentation will be up. You can look it up. You can read all the quick wins. If you move in with a couple of things, there's a lot of quick wins, especially that will improve revenues and debt collection rates. And then are the other benefits. And then there's a very nice summary sheet here that I want you to read. I think I'm not going to say it again. I'll mention it in my speech. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I took longer. I always do, unfortunately.